Welcome to the Auth0 crash course with Next.js. In today's video, you're going to learn how to add authentication system using Auth0 in your Next.js app. Now, what is Auth0? Auth0 is an authentication service provider that will allow you to add user authentication system in your application very easily. In this video, we're not going to build any kind of useful application. My goal is to show you the basic of Auth0. And if you know the basics of Auth0, you can build any kind of application you want. So today we're just going to learn how to add OAuth login system using Google and GitHub. Then we will also learn how to add email authentication system with email verification. We will also learn how to set up a custom email service to send emails. Then we will also learn how to protect any kind of pages or API routes and so many other things. So if you are interested, please consider like this video and subscribe to my channel. This really helps me a lot and it won't cost you any money, so please do it. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so I have already set up a brand new Next.js project, but I've also installed few packages. These packages are for Chakra UI. Chakra UI is a UI framework. I really love it. This has nothing to do with Auth0. I'm gonna use it just to make the text components and the button look good. You don't have to use it, but if you are interested in learning Chakra UI, I have a crash course about it. You can check that out. I will put the link on the description. So basically these are the Chakra UI packages. Now we need to install the actual SDK, the Auth0 SDK for Next.js. This is the Next.js Auth0 package GitHub page and you will find the documentation in the README. We need to install this package, so I will copy this command. So let's open up a terminal and let's install the SDK. Alright, so the package is now installed, so let's just close the terminal. So now let's just go to the _app.js file and let's just delete the CSS file. We need to do few things. We need to configure Auth0. We will add the environment variables in a minute. We need to add this user provider to our app, so we'll paste the import statement. And let's just copy, let's copy everything. And let's delete. So basically it's the same thing. We have just imported the user provider. It is like a context provider in React. And we have wrapped our whole component by the user provider component so that we can have access to our user in our entire app. Okay, so that's it for the _app.js file. And now we need to set up our Auth0 project. So if you don't have an account, please create one, else log in with your existing account. I already have one, so I will go to the Auth0 dashboard and the link is manage.auth0.com. Now this is Auth0 dashboard. Now we need to create a new tenant. So click on this drop down and click on create tenant. Now when you will create an account, it will automatically tell you to create a new tenant. Now what is a tenant? Basically in a tenant you can have multiple applications and you store all of the user authentication logic and the data in your tenant. And this is how all of your application can have access to all of the user data. So basically this is what a tenant is. So let's just give it a tenant name. It will be used as a tenant domain. My tenant name will be Next.0 and you can choose the region. I'm going to choose Japan for now. You can add environment tag, development, staging or production. Development is good for us. So let's create the tenant. Now we need to create a new application. So click on this create application button and you have multiple application type. We're going to choose regular web application. Our application name will be Next.Auth0 and now let's create. And now let's scroll down. We need to choose Next.js. This will give you a quick start guide, but we're not interested in that. Let's go to settings. So this will give you some basic information like domain, client ID, client secret. Then you can add login URI, callback URI, and so on. So let's go to the SDK GitHub page, and we need to add this environment variables. So let's create a new env file. So .env.local, and let's copy this text and paste it here. For Auth0 secret, we need to add a long random text like this. Doesn't really matter here. Then we need to add a base URL. The base URL will be localhost 3000. That's fine. Then Auth0 issuer base URL. This will be our Auth0 domain. So I will just remove the domain. Let's just copy the domain from the settings page and let's paste it here. Then we need a client ID. Let's copy the client ID. Then client secret. I will copy this. Now you don't want to share the client secret ID. I'm showing you, but I will just delete the application anyway. So let's just save the file. And now we need to add few more things to this settings page. We need to add callback URLs. So let's just go to the documentation. So we have two links, allowed callback URLs and allowed logout URLs. So we're gonna copy this, and I guess it's callback, yeah, callback URLs. So just paste it here. Then we need allowed logout URLs. So I will paste it here. Now I'm gonna talk about this allowed callback URL and logout URL in a minute, but let's just save the changes. Okay, so it has successfully saved our changes. Let's see if we need to do anything here. Connections, nothing. We don't need to do anything here. So let's just go to our app. We need to create a new directory in our API directory, and the directory name will be auth. And inside the auth directory, we need to create a file, and the file name will be let me just see. Yes, the file name will be .auth0.js. Let's open that up, and let's just grab this piece of code. So basically we have imported this handle auth function, and we have just called the handle auth function. This will return us another function, and we have just exported that as default. Now this function will actually create few API routes for us. So if I scroll down, this handle auth function create 4 routes for us. This API/auth/login, API/auth/callback, API/auth/logout, and API/auth/me. This API will be used for user login. This one, the API/auth/callback, will be used for redirecting our user after they have successfully logged in. This one will be used for logout, and this one will be used for fetching the user information. And if I go to the application settings page, we have added this callback URLs, allowed callback URLs, which is also /API/auth/callback. Here it also create this API route. This handle auth function actually creates that API route, and also same for allowed logout URLs. Okay, so now that we have set up Auth0 in our application, now let's test it out if everything works or not. I will open up a new terminal, and I will just run the dev server with npm run dev. So let's go to localhost 3000. Alright, so our app is working. So let's just remove this boilerplate code and add few buttons so that we can test Auth0. So just go to the index.js file, and let's just remove everything from here, and let's just create a component, and we need to import the button component from Chakra UI. And again, you don't have to use Chakra UI. And I forgot to do one thing. I forgot to add the theme provider to our application. So just go to _app.js. So let's just import Chakra provider. I will just copy the input statement, and we're going to import Chakra provider. and I'm gonna wrap the entire component by the Chakra provider component. Okay, so now we can have the Chakra theme. So let's add a button. So I will add login, and we have this nice button. Now when the user will click on this login button, we need to redirect our user to an API route, and that API route is this one, /API/auth/login. So let's just do that. You can also use anchor tags or Next.js link tag, even though you don't need to use Next.js link tag, because Next.js link tag is for internal routing, not for external routing. API routes are kind of like external route, so don't use a link component. You can use anchor tag or use the Next.js routers push method, which I'm going to do. So let's just call use router. It should auto import, and let's just extract the push method. And let's create a function, const handle login, and let's call push, and let's pass the URL, and the URL will be this. And let's just add the onClick attribute, handle login. So let's see what happens when we will click on the login button. So let's click on login, and you can see it takes me to a different page. So we already have a beautiful login UI, and also you can see we have an option to sign in with Google, which I will do right now. So let's continue with Google. I'm gonna choose this email. So let's click on accept, and now we are redirected back to localhost 3000. We still have the login button, but we can have access to our user information. We can get the user information using the use user hook. So use user. This is actually coming from Auth0 / Next.js Auth0, and it will give us an object. So let's restructure that. This will give you some properties. It will give you is loading property, then the user object, and then error. So if is loading is true, which means that it is trying to fetch the user data, then we will return a heading component. It will just say loading. Initially the user object will be undefined, so we can add a condition here. So if user is true, then we want to render different thing, else we want to render the login button. So if the user is present, then I want to just print out the username. So it will be user dot name, and also for demonstration I'm gonna log the user object. So you can see that my name has been printed out, the username actually, and if I refresh the page, and you might have noticed that for a brief moment it had shown the loading text, then the username. And if I open up the console, let's go to the console, I will zoom it for you, and if I open up the object, you can see we have different information like email, family name, local, updated data, and so on. But one of the most important property that you are going to need is the SID property. This is the unique identifier for the user. You would want to store this on your database, but we're not going to use any kind of custom database. So now that we have seen how to log in using our Google account, let's see how we can log out. So I will add another button. Actually, I will copy this one, and it will say logout. And let's create another function. I will copy this one, and it will be called handle logout, and the API route will be API/auth/logout, and let's add the function here. So let's go to the app, and we have the logout button. So let's click on logout, and now we have the login button, and user is undefined. So we have successfully logged out. So let me click on the login button again. On the top right hand side, you might have noticed there is an alert. If I click on this, it says step keys. One or more of your connections are currently using Auth0 development keys and should not be used in production. What does that even mean? So let's go to the Auth0 dashboard. Let's go to authentication, then social. We have one social connection, and by default it is Google. Social connections basically means here OAuth authentication. So if we go to Google OAuth 2, and it also gives us this warning, this connection is using Auth0 development keys. Basically it is asking you to add our own client ID and client secret ID. By default it is going to use the client ID and the client secret ID generated by Auth0, and you don't want to use this on your production application. So how can we get this client ID and client secret ID? Let's see how we can get this. So we have this little link how to obtain a client ID. Let's open this on a new tab, and it has taken us to the marketplace of Auth0. So let's go to the installation tab. But first of all, you need to create a Google developer account. I will open this up on a new tab. Basically it will take you to the Google Cloud Console dashboard. If you haven't registered as a Google developer, please do so. Once you have a developer account, you need to create a new project. I already have two projects, but I'm going to create a new one. My project name will be Next.Auth0, and location will be no organization. Let's create. Actually, I will just zoom it for you. And now let's just change the project. Let's go to Next.0. Now we need to set up OAuth consent screen. Let's go to OAuth consent screen. It is asking you about the user type. We need to choose external. Let's create your app name. I will call it Next-Auth0. Then user support email, my current email. Then you can add your app logo. Then you don't need to worry about this app domain. Then click on add domain on the authorized domain section, add domain, and the domain will be just auth0.com. Then developer contact information, I'm gonna add my email account. Let's just save and continue. You don't need to worry about these things. Let's save and continue. Again, save and continue. And everything is done. This is the summary. Let's go back to the dashboard. Okay, so now let's go to credentials. Let's click on create credentials. Let's click on OAuth client ID. Our application type will be web application. Web client name, again I will give Next-Auth0. Then authorized JavaScript origins. Let's click on add URI, and here we need to copy this HTTPS, your domain. So I'll go to the env file. Where is the domain? Okay, so here is my domain, and let's paste. Then authorized redirect URI, and it will be your domain/login/callback. So I'm gonna paste the domain, then login/callback. Then let's scroll down, let's create. Alright, so it is giving you the client ID and client secret. So let's copy this to clipboard. Let's go to the social connections. Let's paste the client ID, then client secret. Then let's scroll down and let's save changes. Alright, so let's go to our application. Let's go back. Let's click on login again. And now you can see we don't see that alert. And again, we can log in using our Google account. So I will choose this one. And again, I have logged in as a user. Now let's see how we can add third-party authentication like Facebook, GitHub, Twitter with Auth0. Now I'm not gonna show you how to integrate with every single platform. I'm gonna only show you the GitHub integration. All the other platform integration are basically same. You just have to follow the instruction. So just go to your dashboard, then go to authentication, then go social. You can see that we already have a social connection, which is the Google one, and we have already used it. So let's click on create connection. And here you'll find all of the platform that you can use. So we're gonna only use GitHub. So let's click on GitHub. And let's scroll down. Let's click on continue. And here we have the form. We have to add the client ID and client secret ID. So let's click on how to obtain a client ID. This page will give us all of the instruction that we will need. So this is the overview page. So let's go on installation. First, you have to have a GitHub account. And now we need to create a brand new OAuth app on GitHub. So I will open this on a new tab. So here we have the OAuth app. So let's click on new OAuth app. And we need to give our app name. So I'm gonna call it Next.js. Homepage URL. Let's go to the instruction. The homepage URL will be HTTPS and the domain. So let's go to the editor. Let's open up the env file. So here is the domain. And let's just paste here. Then callback URL. The callback URL will be the domain/login/callback. So I'm gonna paste it again. Then login/callback. Now register application. And now it is giving us the client ID, but we also need the client secret. So let's click on this. And you need to authenticate again to confirm it. Alright, so now we have the client ID and also the client secret ID. So let's just copy this client ID and paste it here. Let's copy the client secret and paste it here. And let's scroll down. Let's create. And now we need to enable GitHub authentication on our app. So let's enable. Alright, so let's go to our app. Let's just log out. Let's log in again. We should have a button. Yes, we have a button, continue with GitHub. So let's click on it. And now it is asking us to authorize. So let's click on authorize. Let's accept. And now we have logged in with our GitHub account. So let's open up the dev tool. And if I expand this object, you can see we have this information. We have the email, name, nickname, picture, SID, and sub. Okay, so it was pretty easy, right? So now let's see how we can log in with custom email and password. So let's click on Logout. And now log in. So we don't have an account with email and password. So let's click on sign up. Let's add email. And let's click on continue. Let's click on accept. And now we have created a brand new account with our email and password, and we have also logged in with that account. If I open up the dev tool, let's see the object. Here we have a bunch of properties, but here we have a property email verified to false. We have always seen email verified to true, but we have this time email verified to false. Why is that? Well, at first we have logged in with our Google account and GitHub account. So those times the email were verified, but this time there was no verification. A verification email has been sent to this email. Here we have an email from our application. It says verify your account. So let's click on verify your account. And it says email verified. So let's go to our app. Let's just refresh. And let's see the object. But the email verified is still false. Why is that? Well, do you know how do Auth0 knows what is the current user? What is the current user information? Well, it knows from a cookie. So let's go to application. So here we have this cookie called app session, which is equal to a gibberish value. So Auth0 used this to get the actual user information. This session is an old session before we have verified our email. But when we have verified our email, this session hasn't been updated yet. So we need to make sure that our session is updated after we have verified the email. I've tried to find an automatic way of doing it in Auth0, but I haven't found it. So we have to do it manually. Now there are many ways you can do this. You can just simply add a button here to update the session. But I'm gonna do this a little bit different way. I'm gonna do this through the email verification. Now when you will create an account, Auth0 will send the verification email. But that's only for the development purposes. On production, Auth0 will not send you any email. That's why we have to add a custom email service provider. So let's first see how we can add the custom email service provider. Then we will see how we can update the session. So let's just go to branding, then click on email provider. And let's scroll down. So let's enable use my own email provider. And here we have bunch of email provider that we can use. We have Mandrill, SendGrid, Amazon SES, and so on. But we're gonna use none of them. We're gonna use a custom SMTP provider. Let's scroll down, and here we need to fill up some information. Now, what service provider I'm going to use? I'm going to use a service provider called Sendinblue. Sendinblue is great. It's pretty easy to use. It allows you to send about 300 emails per day for free, which is way more than enough. So just set up a new account. It's pretty easy. Then just go to the dashboard. Then click on this drop down and just go to SMTP and API. Then just go to SMTP, and here we have some information. Let's copy this SMTP server. And let's paste that here. Then we need a port, which is 587. So 587, and the username will be this email. So let's copy this, and the password will be the SMTP key. So let's create a new SMTP key. I will give the name Next Auth0. So let's copy this, paste it here, and you also need to give an email where the email will be sent from. So I'm just gonna give my email. So let's just save. Okay, so successfully saved. We can also test it. So send test email. Okay, so test email has been sent. So let's see if that worked or not. So this is my email, but I have used the same email as my from email. So it will go to spam. So let's go to spam. And we have a new email. And it says, congratulations, your email provider has been configured successfully. Okay, so we have successfully configured our custom email service provider. So now let's see how we can update our session after verification. But first I'm gonna delete that user that I have created. So just go to user management and go to users. And here is the account that we had created. So let's just delete. Alright, so our account is now deleted. If I go to our app and if I just refresh, it still says you are logged in. If I just remove the app session and refresh, and you can see we are now logged out. So let's go to the dashboard again. Let's go to branding again, email templates. So here you can change the templates. We have bunch of template like verification using code, welcome email, change password, and so on. So we're gonna change the verification email using link. So here are some parameters that you can change. For example, from, subject, redirect to, and this is the actual code that will be used. So we are gonna only change the URL, the redirect URL. The redirect URL will be our app. So it will be localhost 3000/email verified. The email verified page component hasn't been created yet, but we will in a minute. So this will be our redirect URL. We don't want to change anything else. So that's it. So let's save. So let's just give it a try. We will send an email to this Gmail. So let's just try. Email was successfully sent. So let's see if that worked or not. And here you can see we have an email. It says verify your email. And let's click on confirm my account. And you can see that we have been redirected to localhost 3000/email verified. You can ignore these query parameters for now, but our redirection is working. So now let's configure that email verified page. So I will create another page here, email verified .jsx. So let's create a new component. Let's add some import statements. So these are the imports that we will need. Actually, I have made a mistake here. So let's go to the dashboard. Let's go to the top. So in the redirect URL, we want to attach a query parameter. A query parameter is a key value pair like this. So we are adding update session query parameter, which will be equal to true. With the help of this query parameter, we will be able to update the session. So let's get the query parameter from user.hook. And let's get the query param, update session, and also let's get the push method. Now let's create a state. State name will be refreshed, and the value will be false. Let's add a heading, and the heading text will be your email is verified. And we want to add a button based on if our email has been verified or not. So if refreshed is true, then we want to render a button, and the text will be go to home. Now, how do we actually update the session? We have to use Next.js API routes. So let's just create an API route. So inside the API directory, let's create a file, and the file name will be refresh token.js. So let's just create a function. Let's get the request and response to function from Next.auth. So import from Auth0 / nextjs -auth0, and we want to get handle profile, and with API auth required, we will use that later. So let's just add a try catch block, and also this function will be asynchronous. So await, let's call the handle profile function, and let's just pass request and response, and then we have to pass an object. We have to pass refetch to true, and then we have to pass another property called after refetch, which is an async function. It can have many parameters. We're gonna need the session. Session is the third parameter, and we're just gonna return the session. And now let's just handle the errors. We're gonna console log the error first. Then we're gonna return a response. So rest.status. Oops. And the status will come from error dot response dot status, else it will be 500. Then we're gonna return a JSON. Message will be error dot message. And finally, let's just export it. Now let's go to the email verified file, and let's use the use effect hook. First, we're gonna check if the update session query parameter is true or not. So if update session is true, then we're gonna send a request. So axios.get, and the route name will be /API/refresh token. And let's add a then method, which have a data property. So data will be the parameter. If data is true, we're gonna set the refresh state to true. So set refreshed true. And let's just delete this function. We're gonna pass empty array as our dependency because we only want this to run once. And finally, let's just attach a function on click. So whenever this button will be clicked, we will redirect the user to the root route or the home page. Alright, so we are done with this, I guess. Let's test if that works or not. Actually, I have made some mistakes, so let's fix them. First, the update session query parameter. We are checking if the update session query parameter is a truthy value or not. The update session query parameter will be a string with a value. That means it will be always truthy value. So we need to check if the value is true or not. So if the update session value is string true, not a boolean true value, string true. Okay, so if the update session string value is true, then we're gonna send a request. Then we also need to add a dependency, and the dependency will be update session. Now when the component will be mounted at first, all the query parameters including update session will be undefined. So we need to add the update session dependency to the use effect hook. Then let's go to refresh token file, the API route file. Here on line 11, we are returning session, but this should be lowercase s. The capital S session is actually a class. We need to return the session variable from the parameter. And let's open up the package.json. And yes, I haven't installed Axios yet, so let's just install that. So npm I Axios. Alright, so Axios is now installed. So let's just log in again. So let's sign up. Now let's continue. Accept. And let's go to Gmail. And we have a new email. So let's go to the email. And let's click on confirm my account. and you can see your email is verified, and go to home button. So let's go to home, and we have the email that we have used, and let's just open up the console and let's expand the object, and it says email verified to true. So basically this is one of the way you can update the session after email verification. Now one other thing that I forgot to show you is the documentation. So this is the GitHub page for Next.js Auth0. Here you'll find almost all of the thing that you can do with this package, but there is another website for the actual API reference. If I scroll down, so here is a link for the API docs. This is actually auto-generated, so you won't find much information except the APIs. Here you'll find all of the functions and their required parameters, their return types, and so on. So check them out, but don't expect too much information from here because it is just auto-generated from the source code. So now that we have learned how to authenticate users, now let's learn how we can protect our API routes and our pages. First, we're going to see how to protect the API routes. So we have this refresh token API route, but this API route should be accessed by an authenticated user. Right now, anyone can access this, but we don't want that. That's why we have imported this with API auth required function, and we don't need this session class. All we need to do is just call this with API auth required function, and we need to pass the handler function. And that's it. Our API route is now protected. So let's test it out. So I will just duplicate this tab, and let's go to that refresh token API route. So /API/refresh token. And here is the user information from the session. And now let's just log out. And let's refresh. And it says error not authenticated. The user does not have active session or is not authenticated. So our API route is now protected with this simple with API required function. So now let's see how we can protect our pages. We're gonna see how we can protect our pages from server side and also client side. So let's just create a new file inside the pages directory. I will call it protected.jsx. Let's create a new component. I will copy this Chakra UI import. And also I will copy this Auth0 import. Now I don't need button. I don't need any of this function. I will need with page auth required function. And let's add a heading. And I will say this is a protected page. So let's first see how we can protect a page from server side. So we need to first export the get server side function. So export const get server side props. Now all we need to do is we need to call this with page auth required function. So let's see if that works or not. Currently we are not logged in. So let's just go to the protected page. And now as you can see that we are redirected to the login page because we are not logged in. But if I just comment this line, and if I go to localhost/protected, now we can see this is a protected page. So now our page is protected from server side. You can also pass some options to this function. So you can pass an object, and you can pass a redirect URL where you want your user to redirect after login. So you can just pass return to, and for example the route will be hello. So if I log in now, I will be redirected to /hello. So continue. And now you can see I am redirected to /hello. So let's just log out. Now you can also pass a custom get server side props function. So get server side props, and it will have an context object. You can also get the session from the context object. So let's get the function get session. So const session await get session. We need to pass the request and response object. So ctx.request and ctx.response. And let's just console log session. And also we need to return props. And I'll just comment out the return to property. And now if I just log in, now I'm in the protected page, and if I go to the terminal, now you can see the session printed out. Okay, so that's how you can protect a page from server side. I will just comment everything. Now let's see how we can protect a page from client side. And again, it is pretty simple. I will just copy this line. We just need to call this with page auth required function, and we just need to pass the component. That's it. So now if I refresh, nothing happens. But if I just log out, and now if I just refresh the page, again I am redirected to the login page. And if I log in again, and now I am on the protected page. So we have successfully protected our page from both server side and client side. So yeah, that's it. That's all there is that I wanted to show you. You can see that adding authentication using Auth0 to your Next.js app is pretty easy. So these are all the basics, and you can always read more from the documentation. So if you have enjoyed this video, please consider like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me a lot. If you have any kind of question, please do let me know in the comment section. I'll try to answer them. And on the next video, we're gonna learn about Bliss.js. Bliss.js is a fantastic full stack framework built on top of Next.js. You can build your full stack app very easily with Bliss.js. It has tons of features out of the box and very customizable. So if you want to learn Bliss.js, subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the video. Alright, that's it. Stay safe and goodbye.